welcome to another brand new episode here on 1950's Farm. So winter time has gone, and in the last episode we got the corn planted in this field, and now we're on to rolling, and yes, we have got a set of fan-dabbly-dozely new rolls, which I'm not very good at driving apparently. Ignore that bit, I was warming up the tyres. So yes, we've got a set of new rolls, as I say, and they're a lot better than the other ones. The other ones were good. I mean, you know, they were sort of more what I'm used to seeing in the area that I live in. You know, it's certainly back in the day, but they did have a couple of sort of errors where if you turned a little bit too sharp, they flipped over, and then you couldn't do nothing with them. And they did tend to tangle quite easily as well. Yeah, it was. They were not the not the most easiest set of rolls to use, and also as well, but Courseplay really struggled with them too. So if I wanted to sort of drill and roll at the same time, you know, if time was getting short towards the end of the month, then you know, it meant that I couldn't do that because you know, Courseplay just couldn't handle the rolls, or more likely the rolls couldn't handle Courseplay. So in the end, I had to forgo that idea. So yeah, but as I say, we'll get this rolled, and then we are going to be on to drilling the soybeans in the field to my right at the moment. Whether we start that today or not, I don't know. This unfortunately is going to be well, I don't know whether it's unfortunate or not, but it's going to be a chatty video, mainly because really pressed on time at the moment. More meetings scheduled, and yeah, it's a hectic whole time at the moment, but we're getting there slowly but surely. Yeah, so it's I got today. I'm going to look at a house. So I've got a house appointment in terms of a viewing on a property that I'm sort of semi-interested in renting. Say that much. The enthusiasm is kind of lacking a little bit, just because obviously I don't really want a house in terms of over a bungalow, you know. I'd rather have a bungalow than a house, just obviously for the obvious reasons. On my bad days, I'm going to really struggle with stairs, so ideally I would like a bungalow, but beggars at this moment in time can't be choosers, and for a short-term fix it may well be just what we're looking for, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. I showed my little boy it yesterday, so I saw the house yesterday and showed my little boy it, and he was like, oh wow, he says, has he got a garden, Dad? I said, well, you can see the garden, because he can see stuff in, you know, you'll see a red car and he'll go, Dad, is that car red? And it's like, you can see the car, it's clearly red. It's just like, what are you talking about? And he was like, Dad, has he got a garden? I said, of course he's got a garden. He said, oh wow. He said, be able to have my motorbikes in there. So I said, yeah, that's right, you will be able to play your motorbikes in there. So he said, yeah, he said, and we'll be able to play Nerf guns in there too. I said, yeah, you're right. I said, we will be able to play Nerf guns in there. So he goes, you'll have to get me a swing. So I said, oh, you want a swing, dear? So he said, yeah, I want a swing. So I said, all right. I said, well, you know, next summer, I said, if we're still there, we'll get you a swing. So he goes, yeah, he goes, you have to get me a swimming pool as well. So I said, oh, you want a swimming pool as well, dear? So he was like, yeah. He goes, we you know, he said, then me and you can go in it in the summer then, can't we? So I said, all right. I said, we'll get you a swimming pool. He said, yeah. He said, and a slide. I want a slide as well. I said, bloody hell, Thomas, we're not opening a leisure centre. I said, it's a house, you know. I said, I think you've got the wrong idea. He goes, yeah, but he goes, you know, never let me have any of that stuff. And I said, well, I said, part of the reason probably was cost. I said, and the other part of the reason probably was they didn't have the room in the garden to get it all in. I said, that garden's not 15 acres, you know. I said, it's it's a lot smaller than Nanny's garden. And he's like, he goes, yeah, we'll get it. He goes, he said, it'll be like a jigsaw puzzle. We'll just have to try and fit it. Oh, okay. He said, and we'll need a sand pit. I said, what do we need a sand pit for? He said, so I can play out with my diggers. So I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So yeah, he said, and we'll need a shed. It's like, Jesus. I rented a house and turned it into a complex. Just did very well. But yeah, so as I say, he's quite excited by it, and also as well because where we live, it's quite expensive to rent, and I've been looking slightly further afield, and obviously, for obvious reasons, the prices go down, and it'd be more affordable for me to do. And I said to him, I said, I said, you okay with moving school? Aren't you? No, I don't want to move school. So I said, well, I said, yeah, but I said, you might have to. No, I don't want to move school. So I said, yeah, but I said it. He said, no. He said, that weren't part of the deal, Dad. He said, I'm not moving school. He said, you find somewhere in this area. Otherwise, I'm staying with Nan. And I was like, oh, okay. But luckily, I found one in the area that's still quite a lot, considerably more than where I have been looking. I've been looking sort of Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft and Galston and sort of places like that. Just because, as I say, that they were slightly more affordable. Just trying to think how I want to do this. The thing is, I don't really want to go the other way. I don't want to go with the drilling if I can help it, because it's harder to see, but at the same time I might not have a choice, because this tractor doesn't I ought to have been on one of the John Deere A's. That tractor will turn on a bloody sixpence, but ideally I don't really want to do that, because going this way across the drilling I can see where I'm due next, you see, whereas if I go with the drilling, the two textures end up looking the same. Having said that, I can see that one from that way, and now we'll go up and down. It's just going to be easier. We'll go up and down. But I was going to go, as I say, I was going to go that way, but this way you can actually see the line, but from the other way you can't really see the line too much. But well, I'm sure we'll manage. But yeah, so that's what we're planning on doing, and as I say, plus people have said in the past as well that they do like a chatty video. So yeah, it's been not a bad day. Hopefully your day is going very well as well, although 3 o'clock in the afternoon now, or whatever time you're watching this, but obviously it gets released at 3. Your day's nearly done, but hopefully you've had a good day and things have gone well, and you're able to, as I say, celebrate a successful day. So it's not going too bad for myself. The old cold is still playing me up there, and it's see, I can't see the line going that way. I can sort of see the line, but it's okay. I know we're roughly there, but yeah. So as I say, it's not going too badly. We had some school meetings this morning, and met again with the social worker. So, funny story. A couple of weeks ago, well, I say it's a funny story. It's a story. I'll say that much. But a couple of weeks ago, I rang. So the social worker a couple of weeks ago said, obviously that your ex is going to take you to court to try and get Thomas back. So I said, yeah. So she said, well, you need to get in touch and get a family solicitor for yourself, because obviously you're going to need representation. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I said, like, I'll sort that out. So she said, well, if you don't mind, I've already taken the liberty and sort of sorted it out for you. All you've got to do is give them a call. So, right, fair enough, thank you very much and what have you. So I gave them a call and like literally gave every detail I could, and then realised I was talking to the receptionist. So she's kind of like, she goes, okay. She said, I won't remember most of that. She said, but what I'll do is I'll get one of my colleagues to ring you back, and then you can go through it again yourself. So I was like, okay, fair enough, blah blah blah. So anyway, that was on the Friday. The Friday passed, they didn't ring back. So on the Monday morning, I rang them again, and again the lady apologised and said, oh, I don't know why they didn't ring back, but I apologise and I'll get them to ring back today. Fair enough. So Monday came, never rang back. Tuesday came, never rang back. Wednesday the same. Thursday the same. So Friday comes, so I ring them up again, and I said, look, still no one's got back to me. I said, and I said the only reason why I'm persevering is because you did come recommended to me. So she goes, oh, okay, I sincerely apologise. I said, well, it's not really very good having someone represent you in court when that someone can't even be bothered to do the courtesy of giving me a call back. I said, like I said the only reason I'm persevering is because you've been recommended. So she's like, I'll get someone to call back, and today immediately. So I was like, okay. So Friday, the rest of Friday, no phone call. Monday morning, no phone call. Monday afternoon, no phone call. Tuesday morning, no phone call. Tuesday afternoon, phone call. So I was like, here we go. So I thought, right. So as I say, I get the phone call, and the lady in question is speaking to me. So I said, before I go into all the details, I said, are you a solicitor, or am I going to have to repeat myself? She goes, no, you tell me all your details, and then I'll see what I can do. Okay, so I went through it. She goes, can you bear with, I went for probably a good sort of 5-10 minutes, sort of giving all the information and dates and times and everything like that, because I'm a little bugger. I document everything. I'm just one of those people. I've got too much time on my hands. And anyway, so she said, oh, can I? She said, I'll put you on hold. She said, and then she said, what I'll do is I'll she said, I will sort out where we go from here, and then I'll come back to you. She said, but I'll be sort of a minute, 2 minutes. So I was like, okay, fair enough. So I thought that was a bit weird, but whatever. So she comes back to me. She goes, sorry, I can't represent you. So I said, whoa. I said, let's not dispense with any small talk. I said, why can't you represent me? What have I done wrong? She goes, you haven't done anything wrong. So I said, well, at least tell me why you're not going to represent me. No, I can't. So I said, well, clearly, I at least deserve an explanation. I said, I'm not being funny. I've waited over 2 weeks, well, nearly 2 weeks for you to give me a call back. I said, now that, you've called me back, I said, I at least deserve an explanation. No, I can't tell you why I can't represent you. So I said, well, okay, if you can't represent me, I said, there must be more than one solicitor there. I said, therefore, get someone else and they can represent. No, the company cannot represent you. So anyway, I'm like, just like, that's odd. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. I said, well, to be fair, I said, given the fact that you haven't called me back on, 2-3 separate occasions, and now you've been, nothing but abrupt with me, I said, then, I'm quite pleased you're not going to be representing me, to be honest. And she goes, thanks very much, bye. Put the phone down, right? So I was thinking, what? Like, of all the things I expected, that wasn't one of them, right? So I'm sort of thinking, what the hell's gone on there? Anyway, later that day, I'm picking my son up from school. Well, I've got quite friendly with well, I say quite friendly. I used to go to school with one of the mums that also has a child that goes to the school, to the primary school that my son goes to, right? So I'm sort of telling her, so she goes, sounds to me like they're representing her, and that's why they can't. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I didn't think of that, did I? So that's what I think. So so I said, oh, right. She goes, I've got a number. I said, whose number? She said, your ex's. I said, all right. She said, I'll ring her. I said, why? She said, well, I'll have a chat with her, see what I can dig. So I said, okay. Anyway, next day, get there. So she goes, yeah, they're representing your ex. That's why they couldn't represent you. She said, I rang her last night and I was sort of saying, like, how's it going and everything. And so I said, all right. I said, I take it you're another mum then that hates what I've done. She went, personally? I said, yeah. She goes, I think you've done the right thing. So I was like, okay, because I'm going to school at the moment and dropping my little boy off. And each morning I'm getting comments, I'm getting, dirty looks. I mean, I had one old lady today go, it's disgusting what you're doing to your boy, kidnapping your son. I was like, well, I haven't kidnapped him. Like, he's my son. At the end of the day, I'm entitled to, sort of have my son, and I believed him to be in danger, so therefore I'm trying to keep him out of danger, and it's like, she goes, oh, you need to be sorted out, you do, son. And I said, okay. I said, look, I tell you what, I'll do you a deal. She went, what's that? I don't do deals. She's not a Londoner. I said, I said, when I think it's any of your business, I said, I'll ask for your input. I said, until then, just stay out of it, will you? Well, I've never been spoken to like that. No, I'm being polite. I said, but I said we can soon make it unpolite if you like. I said because it really hasn't got anything to do with you. And of course, I used to obviously, live in the area, with my ex and my little boy's mum and that. And of course now I'm sort of people that I was on sort of good morning terms with and sort of friendly little chats with, and now kind of like going, as they giving me the evils. And a couple of people have gone, oh, it's wrong what you've done, you can't take a boy away from his mum. And it's like, well, actually, if you ask the boy, he doesn't want to be with his mum. A big part of the reason why I got him is because he said to me on the Monday when his mum pushed him through my door and then had a go at me, because of the fact that she couldn't cope. I said part of the reason is he sat on the sofa that Monday evening and basically was crying his eyes out saying, Dad, please don't send me back. And that's why we're at where we're at, but I did, it was very it was very amusing. I was like, ooh, I was like, gonna have to sort of watch me tail now when I'm walking about in the local area. I mean, luckily I don't actually live anywhere near there now, but I live probably about 7 to 10 miles away. So, and I don't, as far as, well, I'm not that I'm bothered anyway, but I don't think any of them know where I live now. But it was funny. So it's I say it's just endless kind of thing. But oh yeah, that was what I was gonna with the solicitor story. So anyway, a friend who, as I say, who found out for me. So that was not yesterday, the day before. So yesterday, spoke with my son's social worker, and I said, oh, the solicitors. That's my pedals again that keep making my tractor stop. I said, they're representing Emma. So she goes, she said, oh yeah, I recommended them to her too. I said, you can't bloody recommend them to me and then recommend them to her. I said, it's hardly, well, anyway, I was like, okay, fair enough. Is that what I'm dealing with? Is it, it's just, just sort of, it was just funny how that all kind of happened. I'm saying it out loud now, and it doesn't seem as funny, but so as I say, it's all interesting games at the moment. But anyway, back to some farming sim. Just thought I'd let you know what was going on in my life. Why not? It's always good to have people to talk to. Yeah, so back in sort of farming sim world, get this corn rolled in here, and then I also want to get, so in May on the game, I'm hoping that what we're going to be able to do is get the big grass field cut at Harry's farm, and then once we've done that, get that ploughed over, because it all needs ploughing. Get it ploughed over, and then we'll be able to plant our soybeans in there. And then the other field that we've grown soybeans in every year so far, apart from the first year when we had wheat in it, but I think the last 3 years has been soybeans. Well, that's now going to be changed, mainly because Harry then started to get into a position where he could start to crop rotate a little bit and just have a little bit of variety. And he also noticed as well that in the last soybean, so the soybean harvest that's just been last autumn, he noticed on his real farm, on his farm, that the yield had dropped significantly, even though everyone else had reported much better yields, and he kind of put it down to the fact that, as I say, he'd grown soybeans on it for sort of 3 seasons, and so he decided to put it into corn, and then for a couple of years, I think for about 3 or 4 years, he just alternated between corn and soybeans on both his fields. But then, as I say, he then started to slowly get more land. His contracting business was sort of kind of going through the roof, and although I've not sort of shown much contracting, I don't know as if I've shown any, to be fair. There is a reason for that. Although Harry did it in real life, that was sort of how he made his money, and whilst today they, according to the family, they do significantly less contracting. They do still do some contracting work, but it's significantly less than than what it was. And they've said that part of the reason for that is that they've got more land, and they have a lot more going on themselves, so therefore the necessity to do the contracting work to make the money is not there really. What we'll do is we'll just pop over the fields, because I just quickly want to show you what I mean about the big grass. I'm sure you know what I mean anyway. And also as well, I noticed, I think my cows are out of hay, so that will need doing in the next episode as well. So yeah, it's just show you what's going on. But that's the reason why I've not and that's also because obviously when Harry started doing more and more contracting and looking after his own farm and his own bullocks that he had, beef stock that he obviously gave up or not obviously, but as I've explained before, he gave up working at the dairy because the dairy was rapidly expanding while he was sort of odd fields here and sort of contracting jobs there and what have you. But he was still sort of gaining not only in reputation but also in land as well. The other thing as well that I wanted to show you as well, the first half of the new project has sort of taken place, but I just wanted to, there's a few things I wanted to show you, and then I'm going to end the video because as I say, I want the next one, I want to do a proper video, a full length video with time lapse and everything, so that so this is where the field ended just here originally, so it went that way, as you remember. Ended there where the green bit is to the stubble. We've now taken, or Harry's now taken, and this did happen in real life. So I was lucky that the field arrangements on this, and like I say, I found Harry's story, many, many, many months before I started to record 1950's Farm, because I needed to find a map that I knew it was never going to represent, perfectly what was the real life, but I needed to find something that was as close as I could get. Now I looked at this. This was one of the first maps that I looked at, and I dismissed it. And I dismissed it on the basis that the game starts you on a little farm over there. And I kind of looked around there, and I was like, well, that's no good, So I sort of turned the map off. Anyway, it's one of those occasions where you've got an idea in your head. You then see something and you dismiss it out of hand straight away, but it never leaves your mind. You're just constantly thinking, and every time I was looking for a map, my head was kind of going, oh, I think you should, look more into Midwest Horizon. I think you should look, you got to look into it more. You got to look into it more. And as I say, I searched, all the American maps, and I just couldn't find anything that felt right. I needed something where it felt like home, because when you read Harry's story, and when you hear some of his family as well, that I've spoken to, their passion for where they live, and their intense homeliness, for where they are, like it really comes across and is really striking. And I needed something like that, and so I reloaded this in, and I dismissed it a second time. But the second time I decided to play, I decided to do a little sort of personal game on here, and I decided to do a contractor. Now, contracting on the game is a bit terrible because it makes you pay for the seed for their crop, and so therefore you actually end up being majorly out of pocket on every single contract, in my opinion. But on the other hand, what contracting does do is it gets you around the whole map. And if you sort of, and what I did was I edited in quite a lot of money. I had the biggest of everything. And I just thought I'm just going to contract everywhere. I'm going to do as much as I can, like course play, all of that business. And I thought I'm just going to go around the map and actually see the map that way. Because I think sometimes when you drive around, you sort of drive by things, you don't really take no notice. But when you're working in the fields, and, I sort of like doing all this with the camera while I, looking sideways on the machine, looking back at the machine, above and, far away and in and everything, and sort of, looking sort of for good, sort of things to do while I'm sort of working away. And I was working in, I can't remember which field it was. I'm not sure if it was this field that I was working in, or if it was the field, not this grass, or it might have been this grass field actually. I might have been doing a baling contract. And I was doing the contract, and then the next contract, yeah, that's right. So I was doing, it's all coming back to me now, because it was October, November last year, roughly, December maybe, when I was doing it. So I was doing a baling contract in this field, and then Harry's big field, where I'm about to show you, but it was my next baling contract. And then my next baling contract was the grass field, which is over there in front of the dairy. And I was doing the contract, and suddenly I was like, sort of far away shots from like my machinery, and I saw the little farm here, and I was like, obviously saw the dairy over there. I was like, and I was thinking, and then I thought, well, actually, because if this was Harry's farm, which is, it's small, it's neat, it's compact, much like Harry's farm was, I thought that's kind of how it was. And then I sort of went over there, did the contract, and I thought that'd make a nice dairy. I thought, flatten this bit of land out, put a cow barn in there, do this, and this, and I was like, actually, I think I found, the perfect place. And of course, the other thing that I came to realise was that this field, which was, just let me get my bearings, Yeah, so this field, which I'm in now, which is the dairies, obviously, backs on to Harry's field, and there's nothing in the way. It was just like, the field, and it's so I was able then to do what Harry did, which was he bought the back of this awkward field from the dairy, which it was a different shape to this. The field doesn't represent the shape or the size or anything, but it just works for the narrative sort of thing. It works for what happened in real life. And then the really awkward bit, which was, I think it was the other way around. I think in real life, the awkward bit was like that side. I think it was the dairy side of the farm. And the reason being is they grassed it all, and then they had the cows grazing in there in the summer, and the bullock cows, not the dairy cows. I mean, because they did have beef stock as well. I know I haven't got it in there at the moment, but they did have beef stock as well. But this awkward bit, which is sort of the wrong side, if you like. But I thought, well, we could grass this, we could fence it, and then we could kind of turn it into a bit of a sort of a bullock area for the dairy. But it's just they're down here, rather than being up there. So that was kind of my sort of thoughts and feelings on the whole thing, and hopefully you agree that that's a decent idea and that will work. I say I'm going to try it, see what happens. But so yeah, I've extended the field, so it's now a much bigger field this side. This field here, because it again came up to here, up to there, and then obviously went this way. And then this big field up here on the left here, where you can see the stubble at the moment, which is the soybean stubble. You can see the stubble there. Well, Harry did, because Harry had a big grass field. Admittedly, it wasn't next to the farm, to be fair. It was a little bit further away. I think, I can't remember. I've sort of seen rough sort of illustrations and sort of bird's eye views, and it's hard, but it wasn't right next to his farm. I know there was a little bit of travel to it, but it was a big field. I would say bigger than this field, and what he did was that he ploughed it up. So he basically did what I did. He split it, farmed one side, mowed the other side for his bullocks, but the field that the bullocks are in for Harry on this sort of save is in a much bigger area than what he originally had, so I don't need the big field because I can mow the grass in that field and it will feed the bullocks quite comfortably. So I sort of don't need it. So I thought, well, what I'll do is next growth stage in May I will excuse me, I'll cut it and obviously bale it for hay and then put it in my storage, but then turn it all over to a field. And then a bit further down the road, a bit further on, Harry bought another field, and and this is what I mean, like, this is why you should never dismiss things out of hand instantly. So Harry bought a field that was divided up by the original owner into two, and basically he had like a sort of wooded sort of tree line, sort of 4 or 5 row deep wooded line between the two fields that separated them. And lo and behold, again, right near to where Harry's farm is, that's what we have here. We have a grass field there, which he's got on one side, and an arable field on the other side. So it kind of all just, when I started to really look into it, and it was like, wow, yes, it's not exact, but I can work with it. I can work with it, and as I always say, it is a computer game. I'm not going to get it exact. That's impossible. And also as well, to do things that like leaving the dairy and sort of going into the contracting, I think that would lose the feel of the save and of the series. So I think I will do odd bits of contracting because it does help to build the money, because Harry was building money. because he realised, along with the dairy, and I think probably the two of them, had sort of been talking, and they realised that there was going to be a storm because there was so much being produced in the early 1950s because of the war, that eventually there was going to be no market for anything because the market was just full of everything. No one needed to buy anything because they already had tons of it to sell. And as well, you have to remember is that by the late 50s into the 60s, the market, not only was it flooded with food, from every country in the world that was trying to, regrow the world's supply of food, but of course, metals were being mass produced. I mean, the UK was massive in like timber construction, brick, stuff like that. So what happened was, in the early 50s, you had this huge demand because many cities across the world had to be rebuilt, and are not just like major, but all cities in sort of all countries that had major military tactical advantages, maybe ports or steel factories or whatever, that was producing all of these things that were bombed, by the Germans, in Europe and the UK, but by the UK and Europe in Germany. Germany had to rebuild just as much as everybody else. And so the demand was huge. Well, by the late 50s, early 60s, these cities were rebuilt. No one was buying materials anymore, and they certainly weren't buying it on the quantities they were buying it. So then what you had was a world marketplace that was absolutely full to the brim of building materials, of metals, steels, bricks, concrete, cement, all of these things, and as I say, food and everything, but no one to buy it. And no one was really buying, apart from, I guess, the food. In a way, people were still buying the food, but even that market dropped off significantly. And there's going to be quite a bit of history coming into some later episodes where I talk about the big crashes, not only in the United States where we're based, but also in the UK, across Europe. Big crashes that took probably a good 10, 15, maybe even 20 years to recover, and possibly, and I'm no sort of financial expert, but maybe some countries have never quite recovered from it. I don't know. As I say, I'm looking forward to doing my research and really sort of finding out about all of that stuff. But so yeah, that was the situation, and Harry and the dairy sort of realised that actually there's going to come a point where no one's going to want anything we want. And so Harry, the dairy was fine because it had the milk, it had the farm. The other thing that it also had, because it was a well-established business even before the incentives from the American government to farm, this was a proper well-established dairy farm already. They knew that they were probably going to be able to ride out the storm. Well, people like Harry that were, that had started up, in the early 50s, well, late 40s, early 50s, with the incentives from, the American government, well, they weren't going to be able to ride out the storm. And Harry was very acutely aware that what he needed to do was not build up stocks of soybeans and corn and wheat and anything like that, or animals. What he needed to build a stock of was money, so that he was able to ride it out. I mean, I've talked sort of very briefly, and as I said, there's a lot more coming on it in the episodes to come. By the late 50s, early 60s, it was cheaper for corn was like $1 a ton, I think it was. I'd have to recheck this because it's been a little while since I kind of did my sort of preliminary research on it, but I'm sure corn was $1 a ton. And farmers in America that were growing corn decided that for $1 a ton it wasn't worth it, so they used it as winter fuel. They harvested it as normal, stored it, and used it as winter fuel, so that they didn't have to buy in no winter fuel. And that's extraordinary to think that, food was being grown on this vast scale, and people were there. Not only were farmers, sort of using it themselves for winter fuel, but they were able to sell it to friends and neighborhoods as winter fuel, as cheap winter fuel. And of course, they were making more from selling it that way than what they would have got if they sold it as food. And I talk very often in the UK based series is about how the UK government is desperate to stop UK farmers from growing food and getting them to grow what's called in this country SFI mixes, um, so that the birds are looked after, so that the bees are looked after, so that the beetles, the caterpillars, the slugs, and everything is looked after, but we're not producing food. Now, we live in very uncertain times, and and again, I'm not a scaremonger or anything like that, but should this country ever go to war with, with whoever, we don't produce nowhere near enough food to sustain ourselves. Our country will not die through military bombardment. Our country will die through starvation. And that is a very real and true, sort of prospect. You listen to any of the big farmers. I talk about PX Farms, I talk about Andrew Ward, I talk about other farmers, and you listen to what they're saying. And remember, these are people that are in the industry that are well in the know, and they're saying, we, I think we produce enough food to feed 1/4 of the country of our own. All of our food that we eat in this country is imported from other countries. And when you consider that only a few hundred years ago, the British Empire spread across most of the planet, to now think that that British Empire has been reduced to nothing and can now only feed 1/4 of its people, it's a scary prospect. And as I say, back in the 1950s, Harry realised what was coming, and so he started to do contracting and what have you, and doing the work. And of course, a bit like the SFI payments that the farmers are getting, and bear in mind, farmers are being paid in this country, in the UK, far more for growing an SFI mix than they would ever get for growing a crop. And that's scary. And Harry realised that this was, this scenario in America was coming. But for the lazy farmers in America, the farmers that are just taking up the incentive to get the money to get a bit of land, thinking, oh, we'll be quids in 20 years' time or 30, 40 years' time. Suddenly you've got people like Harry that are that are sort of going out and doing what, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, I've got all this crop that I can sell. I don't have to have no tractors. I don't have to have no men. I can just get people like Harry to come in and do it for me. Well, Harry's idea, go out, hoard money. But what it ended up doing eventually was it meant that he was able to buy the farms that he was working for because they didn't survive, because suddenly they had nowhere to sell their crops. And there was no point in growing any more crops because the money required to grow more crops was reliant on the money you got from selling the previous crop. They were living from a year-to-year basis. And of course, once you take out the main objective of each farming year, which is to sell your produce to get the money to regrow the produce to sell again next year, once you take that out of the equation, there's no money. And if there's no money, what are people going to do? And yes, they own their farms, or a lot of them own the farms and were either still paying back the government, because obviously the American government obviously expected the money back, and that's what happened. And so it's a very challenging time that's coming up. And as I say, the reason why I've been sort of skipping winter, and I'm going to be skipping a few months each year as well, to try and get down to a little bit more of the sort of happenings that were going on, in in life at that period. But anyway, I've probably gone on for far too much and far too long in this episode, so thanks ever so much for listening. I've really enjoyed having your company. I really enjoy doing the episodes and the research and looking into it and then passing it on. Hopefully, you get something out of it too. And all I can say is I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Bye for now.